Yorokobe Shonen. Yes, indeed. Wow, they are really buffing my favorites lately because, wow, yeah. Today, Grigory Rasputin buff is real with the Last Build 7 recollection stuff, and yeah, I'm very happy with this. Obviously, people don't know he was my first 120 servant on JP. Big fan of this guy. Also, first ever buff for him, and it is a skill buff to his very infamous third skill, the Guts one, so let's see what we're working with here. So, before the buff, on a 7-turn cooldown, we got a doozy of a skill. So first of all, when activated, he gets a Guts for 1 time, 3 turns on self, okay? Which revives with 1 HP. And this Guts could also stack with other Guts. It's not really mentioned here, but yeah, it can also stack. Pretty cool. So this is a guaranteed, like a standard Guts. Then he gets another Guts for 1 HP, but this one is not a 1 time 3 turns. This is a 3-turn Guts, meaning it basically has unlimited uses, but the gist is, on max rank, it is an 80% chance to activate. So the first Guts activates first because of order operations. So if you get brought down to 0 HP, you get this one for guaranteed. This one always works. So you at least have 1 guaranteed Guts, okay? But then after that, it's going to start checking from this other one. So you can potentially immediately die afterwards if you lose the 80% roll. Or you could get like a bunch of activations from this too, if you land the roll as well. So it really depends on how, consistent this Guts will be. Then he gets this on Guts trigger effect after this is applied for 3 turns, and every time a Guts is triggered on him, he gets 20% MP damage for 5 turns, and this on Guts trigger effect lasts for 3 turns. So that's pretty cool. So it's basically guaranteed to get one of these if you go on 1 HP, because the first Guts is guaranteed. But besides that, you have to just start rolling 80%. But this can actually start to ramp up quite rapidly, because the final effect of the skill is a 3-turn taunt for self, meaning that, yeah, when you activate this skill, he's gonna get blasted a lot. And as he's an alter ego, chances are he's gonna be hit by neutral attacks anyway, instead of like, not effective. And especially if those attacks are crits and whatnot, he can definitely be brought down to Guts statuses very easily. So it was a very interesting skill. Again, this skill has always had the potential to be absolutely amazing, but sometimes you just lose the 80% and then he just dies. And then you probably reset or just go cry in a corner or anything in between. So it always had the potential to be pretty nuts. Protecting your team and really pumping himself up while doing so with this MP damage ramp up. So let's see what they changed, because there's quite a bit of stuff. So now on the same 7-turn cooldown, the first Guts is unaffected, the guaranteed one for 1 HP, that is 1 time 3 turns, also still the first thing in our order of operations. That hasn't been changed. Also, it is a stackable Guts still, it's not listed in Atlas, but it does stack. Now, they changed the second part a little bit, so the RNG Guts. Well, unfortunately, it is still RNG, because it would be, I guess, a bit too broken if it wasn't, because it's a 3-turn Guts with a 3-turn taunt in it. But now, this also stacks with other non-RNG Guts. They really had to word it like that, so he can't, have, because of cooldown reduction, he would otherwise have multiples of these 80% checks active at a time. And I believe this also means it cannot stack with Necromancy, because Necromancy is also RNG-based Guts. So that's the thing. But it does stack with normal Guts now as well. So if you actually give him a Guts CE now, he has that Guts from that, then he can get this first Guts, which is guaranteed, and then he can also still get this RNG Guts. So now applying Guts for him from a CE or from another ally that can give him a Guts is actually viable. Because if you had one before and you used the skill, you only get the guaranteed Guts, but you would have not gotten this RNG one, so this would have failed. But now it can stack as long as the Guts isn't RNG. There you go. That's already a start. Now, they changed the on Guts trigger activation as well. It is still 3 turns on himself, but now whenever a Guts activates, it's still the same 20% MP damage for 5 turns, but now it's applied to the whole party, not just for himself, okay? It is now full team-wide. which is interesting, because chances are if you bring him, he's going to be your solo DPS anyway, and you might be saying, oh, but it's great for farming, but then you gotta realize, but you have to get guts procced for farming, though, so that's kind of a problem for farming. You would have to get him basically killed for that to happen, and usually when you're farming, the enemy is hopefully not going to be attacking you in the first place. Now, the only application for farming I could think of maybe could be like a Chen Gong thing, where you obviously sacrifice him, get the guts proc, so that could be a thing, but again, chances are you would have to at some point roll this 80% chance. You would either want it to land or not land, but because it is RNG, you would never have the control over it anyway. So this really is this change is mostly for DPSing if you're running like a double DPS setup, but personally, I always like to run him with double support anyway, so I feel like this is not the biggest change. But let's move on. We have other stuff to talk about still. So now he gets a completely new line as well. So instead of just having the on guts trigger activate buff for 3 turns, he gets an on attacked buff for 3 turns. So now any attack that lands on him does something. And what it does is that he gets 10% crit damage for 5 turns whenever any attack lands on him. Now obviously, again, this still has the 3-turn taunt, of course. So that means he's gonna be attacked a lot. Now, he can be attacked by a maximum of like 9 times with this, assuming there's not like 6 enemies on the field, which means that he could get like upwards of 90% crit damage from this. And again, keep in mind, even though this trigger and this taunt are 3-turn effects, much like the MP damage, the crit damage is also 5 turns when you get one. So they definitely have longevity as well, both the MP damage and the crit damage. Now, this is an interesting thing because he's obviously an art servant, and he has really no star gain whatsoever. This is coming from someone that actually uses him a lot, because again, I really have a huge copy of him, but he really has 0 synergy with crits. He is all about spamming his MP. There is nothing to do with crits. Even the alter ego base absorb is just whatever. It's okay, but it's not great. So I'm not sure how I really feel about this. I mean, it's great that he can ramp up it a lot easily, but obviously if you run him the usual, you know, Castoria, Lady Avalon, or whatever, you know, with supports, then you're not going to be getting that many stars consistently, unless you have, like, a lot of Lady Avalon MP stacked together with OCs or CEs. But yeah, he himself doesn't really have much to do with crits, so I'm kind of surprised they went with this route, but I guess it opens some new windows for him for support. You can maybe even try running Johanna with him for them arts crit synergies. It's an interesting buff though. I like it. So that's all the changes and new stuff. A bit of a doozy. So again, do rewind in the video if you need a recap, or just ask in the comments and I'll be happily answering them there as well. But very interesting. Again, this is his first buff ever. He was never really top tier to begin with, in my opinion. In fact, we placed him on A rank on this year's tier list, which is obviously not super high. But with this, honestly, I might just keep him there. Maybe there's some better application for the team-wide MP damage that I'm not thinking of right now, but I really have a hard time imagining it ever being worked in farming. It would just have to be some kind of a application for bosses, which is kind of where he shines the most anyway, because that taunt guts, and then you can have invulns from Castoria and whatnot. It really is a great combo of things. But yeah, we'll see. I'll definitely personally do a lot of testing because I love to use him a lot. He's like one of my go-tos when it comes to hard content, just because I have that big copy. But for people that have like a base copy, they probably don't use him that much, if I had to guess. So yeah, we'll see. But you know, maybe I'll report back later on a future video and see how I feel about it. But as is, I think I might just keep him there. We'll see. Could be maybe an A+, but I'm not going to jump the gun this time. We'll just bing chilling there. So there you go. There's the Rasputin buff. Yeah, I'm happy that one of my favorite servants got buffed, of course, but yeah, it's probably not going to be too big of a game changer. But I'm still not sad about it, because, you know, everything it's just cool new stuff, I guess. We'll see if they ever do anything else, but yeah, that was a doozy of a buff to cover. So, if you enjoyed this buff breakdown, do me a solid and like on the video. It really helps out, of course, and do subscribe not to miss out on future videos, including more buff breakdowns, most likely, because they've been rolling so many buffs lately, so you can definitely expect to see more of these. Also, shout out to my patrons on the screen right now, and suit for being a big YouTube tier member supporter. And hey, have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.